everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Becca at So Darn Twisted. Today's video is going to be a tutorial for the new September swap for the Facebook group that I admin with, which is, if you're not already a member, it's Junk Journals for Beginners by a Beginner. One of the groups that I admin for, but I deal with all of the UK based events for that group. So if you'd like to come and join in the swap, do feel free to sign up, and all the information is in the featured posts. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different this month. We've done things like Happy Mail swaps and decorated things and the like, but I thought, well, how about if we were to make a set, you know, a cohesive set of something. So I thought, well, this time I'll do a tutorial, because one of the other groups that I'm in used one of my other tutorials for the fold out tag kind of thing. They used that for last month's swap, so we all kind of made two of those and swapped them, and I thought, you know what, yeah, okay, why not use my tutorials to do stuff like that anyway, or just make some to do it with. So hence here we are. So for this one we're going to be making a tag with obviously like journaling space. We're going to be making a little mini notebook and a hidden journaling card. Okay, so the idea is that they are all decorated to match each other. You know, that's kind of the point of this one, guys, is that it does, you know, it all ties in together so it forms a complete set, rather than three of, you know, one each of these things but decorated differently. These are all to be decorated as a set. So it's very, very simple. One of the reasons I wanted to do it as a, you know, video tutorial is to encourage beginners to join in as well, because people don't realise necessarily that things like this are completely attainable as beginners. You know, I know people often say, oh, you know, I'm just a beginner, so I can't do this and I can't do that and everything, but with guidance you can. So here's the guidance, you know, and I'm going to show you how to make these. They are incredibly simple to make, I promise. And if you're anything like me, you'll go and start mass making stuff once you've learned how to do it, because when I first figured out the hidden journaling card thing, and that was it, I went crazy. I made hundreds of them. It's like, I don't think there's a journal exists that doesn't have some hidden journaling cards from me now. So yeah, I've got a tutorial up for hidden journaling cards from some time ago, but this is obviously on a different scale and to tie in with this set. So let's get rolling. Let's talk about what equipment we're going to be using and what supplies that you need to get this rolling. Alright, so let's talk materials. Now, most important thing that you're going to want is your scrappy, these are just offcuts from things that I used for other projects, but I've got a lot of this card, so I've got a lot of scrap of this card. But you're going to want pieces that are big enough to make a tag, obviously, so, you know, a decent sized tag, so you don't want it to be tiny, you know, that becomes a bookmark. But then they're interchangeable, right? So yeah, you're going to want something that's wide enough to be a decent sized tag and a decent sized journal card, and to top your notebook. So the journal card I will use the bigger piece for, the tag will come out of the thinner piece, and the top of my notebook will almost certainly come out of the thicker piece as well. Now this is an absolutely ideal way to use up these pages of books that have, you know, the title stuff on them, so you can't use the whole page, or, you know, they've been written on, this kind of thing. Absolutely perfect time to use that sort of stuff up. Some of these I have dyed, some of them are just as they were, and also, you know, you get that kind of end of chapter page as well. So absolutely brilliant time to use up that kind of stuff. But for your journaling card, you're going to want something that's just a little bit more robust than just the general book paper, which often happens when you tea or coffee dye relatively decent paper anyways. It tends to thicken up. So, well, it does in my experience anyway. Not wafer thin pages, you know, that's not going to happen, but your general sort of decent weight paper. You can just use a piece of scrap card. It doesn't have to be, you know, recycled book page. So yeah, anything like that. That's going to be, as I say, to make your journal card and the note paper for your notepad. Then you're going to want paper trimmer or pencil, ruler and scissors. I'm going to be using some ink and a corner punch, which again, as I always say, you don't have to use them if you don't want to. I've sort of put together a few little embellishments that I'm likely going to use. You know, I've got little bows, I've got some clusters that I made, some little metal embellishments that I picked up at the craft barn the other day, some of those nice corner pieces, and this really nice kind of beaded, not bead ribbon thing. So I've got those, and then I've got my little lace scrap tub. I'm going to make a tutorial about these because these are wonderful. For things like this, I just need to gather together a few little embellishments, shove it on my desk. That's great. When I'm working on projects, what I do is, as I cut off pieces of lace, like I was using lace to edge journal pages edges, so when I'm done and I trim off the bits that I don't need, I put them all in one of these sat by the side of me, and then when that gets full up, or at the end of the project, what I do is this. I have this whole big tub that is just full of these bits and pieces. Bigger pieces I tend to cut down into smaller pieces, and then I use these to make clusters. So there's everything in here, from like really, really tiny little bits and pieces through to, you know, sort of proper big chunky pieces. And that's then when I want to make clusters, I just dive into that, you know. So but that's what these are really useful for. I don't need to have that whole big tub to hand to root through for a few pieces of decent size that I want for this. So yeah, I'll do a tutorial on how to make those. Optional equipment is a tag punch. Obviously you do not need to use a tag punch, it just makes life a little bit quicker and easier if you do. Stapler for the top of your notepad. Again, you can just glue your pages, you don't need the stapler, this just makes it quicker. An eyelet punch and some eyelets if you would like to use those for the top of your tag notebook, with the whole thing really, you know, you can use all of it. So yeah, that's kind of the equipment side of things. So I'll get all of this cleared out of the way, and then we'll move on to the how part. Right, so for your notebook, you need to find out what the narrowest piece of paper that you have is and how deep you're going to have the notebook. So if I was to take the half of that that's not got stuff on it, well, effectively I could use that part and cover that up with the card that's going to fold over the top. So I could cheerfully say that my notebook could be kind of, what's on the back there, kind of that long. So I'll just kind of give that a little pinch fold just to let me know that that's my kind of height. Obviously if you've got bigger pages, you know, and you want to work with the bigger pages, that's absolutely fine, but I tend to work with what my smallest piece is and build up from there. So we're going to just chop that off. So we'll just chop that off of there, and if there's a raggedy edge or anything like that, we'll just tidy that up as well. And then I know that that is now my measurements. You can make it a bit narrower if you want to. In fact, I might just knock that into an actual finished measurement rather than silly measurements. You know, 9.3 centimeters. No, you can just eyeball cut it as well. You know, you don't have to have it, you know, exactly precise. You can just get your first piece and cut all the other pieces out roughly the same. Oh no, what is happening? This paper is so thin that my paper trimmer is just chewing it. I should have put multiple pages in. Never mind, that piece is going to be hidden anyway. See, we've got to love it. We can cover up the mistakes. Right, so I know that that is now 9 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So I will cut the rest of the pieces to be the same. So if I've got pieces that are very similar in size, I just cut them together. So yeah, let's get those ones in there at the same time. So that is going to be 10 on the height, and then I trim off the raw edge to get my 9 mark there. So you don't need these to, you know, to have tons and tons of pages. I normally put between kind of 8 and 12 pages in anything like that. So, you know, it's fine. We can just get that below that bit of text there. How glorious is that? So, oh, let's go the raw edge there. So that's going to be the 9. So yeah, just cut yourself, you know, you just want a few. A few is a good measurement, I find. People say to me, how much of that shall I put in? A few. How many pages shall I put in a signature? A few. Oh, I'm atrocious, aren't I? I don't know why you guys put up with me. I really don't. On the one hand, I'm all precise. On the other hand, I'm like, just wing it. It's fine. All right, so I've got, what have I got there? I've got 1. Can't do that because it doesn't want to work today. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think 6 or 7 pages there, so we'll get another one as well. Oh, that piece might be nice for the journal card, actually. I'm trying to see which piece is thicker and more resilient. No, that one's going to be more resilient. Okay, so this one's going to be a notebook piece then. Okay. It just helps to use up, you know, just those extra little scrappy bits and pieces that, like, if you do break down ruined books and that for the pages to use, people are often at a loss of what to use the title pages and that for, and this is the kind of thing I always use them for. So we've got those. They are now sorted. So we now know that if 9 is our width on the book, let me get that up into the frame a bit better. So if my width there is going to be 9, in fact, let me just adjust that angle slightly just so that you guys can see a bit better. There we go. I'm making you dizzy now, right? So what I would tend to do then is make this like 1/2 centimetre, just so it just overlaps it slightly. So this I would cut at 9.5, and then I'd want my where's the one that still had text on it there? So I just need to make sure that that one is covered. But what I would normally say is kind of go for sort of 1.5 centimetres over the flap. You can get away with 2 if you wanted to, you know. So then I would make that 4 centimetres before I cut the width, so I'm not cutting the width of that whole big piece, you know. So let's cut that down to 4. It's getting caught on something there. Oh, I am all fingers and thumbs today, aren't I? My life. I think I should just go back to bed, start over again tomorrow. Okay, so 9.5. Fantastic. So that is going to be the top for our notebook. So what I would say then is to make it all kind of tie in nicely, I would use the same width, the same height for my journaling card, but you can keep it either the same width as your notebook if you wanted to, in which case you can, you know, just trim down the whole piece, or you can make it a, you know, a bigger chunkier one and work within the confines of what you actually have left over, which is what, you know, what I tend to do, because otherwise you're just creating more little bits of scrap, you know, and you're not working anything to a specific size, just working with what you've got. So I would say take that down, or sorry, use that at whatever it currently is. So we have at the moment, it's just over 20.5 centimeters. So I would just trim the end off to make that a whole measurement. Then we're going to cut this piece in half. So now I know that that's going to be 10 centimeters. Okay, fabulous. So those are now the 2 pieces of my journal card, my hidden journal card. Fabulous. So the width of that was, let's see, 13 centimeters. So I'm going to make the inside piece about 11.5, because what I like to say is try to leave yourself wiggle room, because when you're trying to push the card back into this gap, if it's too tight against the edges, it starts to buckle. It's a mess. It just makes it tricky. If you keep it on the smaller side, it will just slide in and out a lot easier. So I tend to sort of say, try and go for like 2 centimeters, you know, less than what your overall measurement was. So I know that I'm going to need that then to be 11 centimeters by 8 centimeters. I say no, like, yeah, I'm never confident in anything that I think anymore. No. Okay, so there you go. So as you can see, that's still, you know, doesn't leave a massive amount of space around the outside edge, so you still need to be quite careful with your glue, but it's closer at least. If you wanted to make the width slightly smaller still, there's nothing wrong, you can do that. It's completely fine. Okay, so lastly we have our tag to make the piece for. So what I would say is, if you're using a punch, obviously you're going to have to work within measurements. If you're freehanding it, it doesn't matter, it can be whatever size you want it to be. So I know that this has to be 2.5, so it's really what size do I want the height of my tag to be. So I'm going to take it to a decent size, because by the time the tag punch has taken its bit away, you know, oh, I need to make the width right first, don't I? Good Lord. You know, it's arguable that it's better to just freehand it, because then you don't have to trim stuff off, but it's okay. It's okay. So we're just going to put that in there, punch that out, and then obviously by that point, you know, I've lost a bit off the top anyway, so it's made it that bit shorter. So always allow for the fact that you are going to be losing, you know, kind of another or ½ inch or so off the top. So you've guessed it, the next stage is clipping and inking and all of that kind of stuff. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to do the tag. So if you're using obviously a corner punch, you know, go ahead and grab that, either a rounder or a decorative, or, you know, whatever you're going to use, and just get yourself some bits and pieces punched out. And now it's just the inking part, which again is completely optional. So that's everything inked and ready to go, and I'm just going to do the score line on my notebook topper here. So I know that I made that 4 centimeters, so I'm just going to line that up at 2 centimeters and just give that a nice score. Fabulous. Okay, get that back out the way again. So now we're going to do the assembly. So I'm going to take our little pieces of note paper here. What I will say is, if you are using paper instead of card for this, then I strongly suggest that you glue your pages together, because the stapler will make really ugly shapes through the paper. So if you double your paper up, it won't be so bad. And that's something else that you can do as well on your journaling card. If you feel that your paper isn't robust enough and you don't have card that you want to use, just glue 2 pieces together and you'll be fine. So because I am using card, I'm just going to throw a couple of staples through there, grab my piece here, and I'm just going to put a decent amount. But you guys know what I'm going to say, don't you? Enough, but don't go crazy. You always get the impression that when you see people going over and over a space with their glue, that they're putting stacks of glue on, and often it's because, like in my situation here, I'm using a fine tip nozzle, so it doesn't throw out a hell of a lot of glue at once. So I go over it to make sure I've got really good coverage, but you don't need to go absolutely crazy. Okay, there we go. So just give that a nice little push down. Now, as I say, I like to make it a little bit wider. There's 2 reasons for that. One, if you're cutting it by hand, you know, just judging it roughly, or you make mistakes on your trimmer, and you know, you end up with some that are wider than your initial measurements, so you've got them, they're a little bit higgledy-piggledy. That will compensate. Thankfully these are really, really close. Actually, there's only like a fraction of a millimeter. But there's often times when you think, oh my god, that's a good couple of mil out, I can't be bothered to try and trim that down. You don't need to, it's fine. So there we go, notebook done. So now for your journaling card. Now, I have done a tutorial just on how to make these journaling cards before, so you may already be aware of this process, and that's fine. If you are, skip ahead. Now, control your glue around here. It's really, really important that you keep close to the edges. Don't overload it, but also make sure that there is enough to, you know, to keep it sealed. But you really, really don't want to be going all, you know, you don't want to do really wiggly lines and stuff like that. You just want to keep it nice and controlled. Take your time. You know, it's not a marathon, you know, unless you're using a glue that dries with instantly. This one dries really quickly, but I've still got time to do that and keep it controlled. So then we're just going to pop those two together, get them nicely squared up and push them down. Obviously, if you do end up with any seepage, just give it a little bit of a wipe, and any just little fine tune adjustments on the alignments. There we go, lovely. Okay, so now just give that a few seconds to dry, or however long your glue takes. Don't try to cut it while the glue is wet. As I say, this glue dries relatively quickly, like, you know, in about 30 seconds. I know I can cut that without any risk of it moving. All right, so now we're going to take our journaling card. Obviously, if you've got directional card, make sure you cut along the direction and not against it, unless, you know, it's for you and you're not bothered. I can't bear it. No, it's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go, all right, so this was what, 10 wide, so I'm going to take that to 2.5 centimeters up that way, and then I'm just going to give that a nice little slice like so. Okay, and then if you want to ink the slot, do it now. Personally, I prefer not to, because then it makes it that bit more hidden, doesn't it? So I tend not to do that. So then you're going to take your glue, and we're just gonna, again, not go crazy, but just pop some just along the inside of the gap there, and then we're going to take our card, open that up again because the glue's already trying to hold it down, and then we're just going to push that in and get it centered. Okay, so push it in as far as you can get it to go. Oop, pulled it completely out of line there, trying to center that, didn't I? Right, there we go. So it's roughly central, and roughly is fine. So now we just need to double check that we can fit it in there nicely, and that will close like so. So when you pop that into a journal, you know, behind a belly band or into a pocket or something, doesn't look like much, does it, until you pop it open and you've got your nice little hidden journaling spot there. So that's fabulous. Okay, so that's now done, that's done, and that's done. So now it's just a case of decorating the things however you want. Now, as you know, ordinarily I don't do a lot of decoration in the tutorials, because I'm more about the technical, this is how you do it. You know, I believe that decoration is a really personal thing to you, and you know, but because this is for a swap, I thought, well, it might just give people some ideas of what they might like to do. So with that in mind, I would look at something like this and say, okay, well, you know, something like that's made for the job on there. That's, you know, quite nice. You could then, oh, you could then tip all of your embellishments out all over the place, because quite clearly that's what I'm looking to do. So yeah, I would think about putting something along there. and then maybe a cluster, or you know, one of the bows or something. And I tend to just dry lay things and see how I feel about them, and that looks quite nice. That's quite elegant. I think I'd save this for either the tag or the journal card probably. So yeah, okay, I like that. That looks nice. So we're just gonna cut that down to the right size, which is just gonna be there. I love this stuff. I used it so much yesterday in the Gothic journal that I'm making. I found so many uses for it. It was ridiculous. Okay, so then just, as you know, little dabs, little dabs. The thing with stuff like this is you just need it to stay on, you know. It doesn't have to be universally, you know, bonded. Just needs to be on there and stay on there, but that doesn't mean you have to flood it. So let's just bring that down a touch. Fantastic. There we go. Lovely. So now that's on. This stuff just does take a few seconds to bond on things like plastic, but it's the thing I love about this glue is that it actually does stick so many things, you know. It's wonderful for that. So okay, so while that's doing what it's doing up there, let's have a look on here. Now, because I'm tying them in, I will absolutely utilize the same things across all three, because that's kind of the point of this, is that it does that, you know, that it works as a cohesive set, as opposed to, you know, just like a really random, you know, selection of things. That one I won't do on the diagonal because these are in like preset sections. I can't. I was thinking, oh, I'll do that diagonally, but it'd overhang the edge and that would bother me, so it's going to have to go straight along, and that's just that. And then I quite like the idea of having some of this on here, and then maybe just one of the rectangles to top the embellishment. So yeah, I think that's gonna work. So let's again trim this down. I'm so fortunate right now that the measurements that I've picked so far, without thinking this through, that these actually are wide enough to not cause overhang or be too short, because that would drive me crazy. I'm just going to do it directly on there, I think, on this one. Oh, and then just drop that straight in the glue. Give it a little wiggle just to help it distribute. Get the glue trail out the way and off of my finger. Okay, that's looking fine and dandy. And then I'm just going to trim that. It's from where I put it on a snippet roll. It's just the ribbon. So trim that, get rid of it, don't want it. Because I did it with hot glue, you have to be aware that sometimes you think you've got all the hot glue strands away, and then you realise that you were wrong. And you go to use your snippet in something and you go, oh, like this one, there's just this strand there. Okay, so which way round's that gonna go? I think that way's good. So we'll just pop that down, leave that there. This should be done now. Yep, that's sorted. So let's get this one glued on. This bottle has so much glue in it, but yet it likes to pretend that it's gasping. Desperately needs refilling. Does not. Okay, so let's just give that a nice little push down. And then again, I'm just going to pop that to one side and let that finish drying, and then utilise this. Now, a nice idea for this might be to put it along the actual join as well, so that it just further disguises the line slightly, just to make it that bit more difficult. Oh, this one's an exact size as well. Oh my god, I could not have planned that better if I'd tried. I was thinking, you wait, I'm going to get to this one, it's going to be horrendous, you know. Now, when I'm decorating something like that, I will take that piece out, because you don't want to accidentally glue this to the top, either the the base piece or the embellishment that you use. The last thing you want to do is get it stuck together. So let's just pop that along there, and it gives me a nice guide. I can see exactly where the edge is. Okay, so then again I'm just going to pop that down and give it a minute just to let it dry. Well, a minute doesn't take a minute, but you know what I mean. So we'll put that up there. Then let's see about something else for this top one. So I think maybe some of that lace. I don't want to use the whole width of that. This is more ribbon I picked up from the craft barn. If you guys haven't seen me post about the craft barn, by the way, in the groups, it is a charity shop at Chasewater Park in the West Midlands. So if you're local to that area like I am, it's a charity shop in aid of the local school, Saxon Hill School, and effectively it's all craft, the whole thing. It's just craft. So you can literally go in there and go nuts. And they have, basically, if you can think about something as a craft material, you will probably find it at the craft barn. And the ladies are absolutely wonderful. I always end up chatting with Angie and Jill. I love the place. It's wonderful. And they are far too cheap. I tell them off all the time that they are too cheap. But it means that obviously they sell more. So that's a good thing. But you can go in there and you will come out absolutely laden with items that you wouldn't necessarily find elsewhere, because most of it is donated, most of it's new, a lot of it's new, sorry, but a lot of it is just like donated bits and pieces. And if like me you love lace and bits of broken jewelry and all that kind of stuff, and scrapbooking papers, oh my god, you cannot go wrong. You will have a blast. So yeah, if you make it down there, then you can thank me later and tell your bank manager to not ring me. It's not my fault, because there's just so much and you're going to want all of it. So let's pop that on there, and in the right line would be great. I can never make it round everything they have in there, because although it's quite, it's a small little place, but it's packed to the rafters. It's like Aladdin's cave in there. So I can only stand for sort of so long. Although last time I went in, oh my god, bless them, I had a bit of a wobble, and it's like the next thing I know there's a stall and the offer of water or a cuppa and some biscuits, and you couldn't find nicer, more caring people if you tried. But despite their efforts, I can still only be standing up for so long. It was like, no, okay, I'm gonna have to go. So there we go. So now that just looks a bit nice, doesn't it? Is that all? Yeah, that is all stuck down, just checking. So then I think to tie it in, I'm likely to add a couple of bows on this. Maybe down the bottom would be nice, wouldn't it? So let's just tighten that up before we glue it. So, I mean, as you can see, although this is like a set of 3 things, because they're all really, really quick and easy projects to do, it doesn't feel like you're taking ages to make a whole set of things, because you can knock this lot out within an hour, even if you were taking your time, even if you were making clusters. You could still knock this out really, really quickly. So I don't think it's like, I don't think it's like a huge challenge to be able to do the 3 pieces. So let's just get another one down. And now I'm not entirely sure whether I want this one in the top corner or down the bottom as well. And oh dear, decisions. No, that one, decision has been made for me. It's going up there. That's it. That is it. Okay, so there we have that. Let's make it again, let's make it cohesive, and we'll put another bow onto here as well, which might be nice down here because I'm going to tie some fabric through the loop, so that could sit quite nicely in there. Now I'm not going to get into, you know, adding sentiments and stuff like that for this. That's going to be obviously down to you guys. Like I say, it's very personal. I'm just giving you a rough idea of the kind of things I would do, but I would go ahead and I would add some stickers, or, you know, just some other bits and pieces that fit my theme. You know, a nice metal embellishment in the middle of there would look quite nice, you know, that kind of thing. Something like that could look really nice in the middle of there, you know, or a key, you know, stuff like that. That's the kind of thing I would put in there, but I haven't decided what I'm actually going to put in there yet. So there we go. So now it's just a case of getting some ribbon or some lace, or, you know, whatever you want to use to go through the middle of there to tie it in with the lace that's on this one. You could, you know, use this lace, for example, or you could use some sort of flouncier fabric. Let's just see. I'll just pop that through there. Depends on how sort of, you know, fussy and elaborate you want yours to be. Do you want them to be simple and elegant? Do you want them to be, you know, big and fussy and flouncy? It's entirely your call. But, you know, for the purposes of this, I'm going to just be throwing them in my Gothic journal. I think I'm quite happy with them just as they are, like that, with just that little bit of lace. You can use a softer lace if you've got a softer lace, which actually I do. That piece that I was looking at for the top, you know, something like that would make a nice flouncier top to it if you were to just cut that down a little bit. You know, if I was to cut that in half, it would make a sort of softer, floofier version to go on there. So that's, my loves, is your mission should you choose to accept it. So we have a tag with journaling space on the back, we have the notepad, and we have the hidden journaling card. So I hope that you're going to join in the swap. If you aren't a part of the swap and, you know, you're not in the groups, you just want to make it, well, you can do that too. I don't mind. It's just a nice little journal set. It's a nice thing to stick in some happy mail, you know, if you don't take part in swaps or anything like that, you know, then that's absolutely fine, isn't it? You can just do that. But if you would like to take part in the swaps, then you can find most of the swaps that I organise take place in the Junk Journals for Beginners by a Beginner Facebook group, which I will link to in the description. And I will be doing some targeted challenges on my own group, which is also linked at the end of the videos and in the description as well. So if there's anything that you'd like to see done as like a challenge swap, then let me know. But for the most part, I'm just going to be making tutorials and then going, okay, if you guys want to join in, this is what we're doing. So I hope that you've enjoyed it, guys. Obviously, as always, if there's any questions at all, you know where to find me. Just drop me a message or leave me a comment. If you did enjoy this, leave me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And obviously, if you don't subscribe already, consider doing so. There's lots of content like this that is very simple, easy for beginners, but still looks like a nice polished item that you can happily send out in swaps and things like that. So there you go, guys. Until next time, happy crafting.